Hello and welcome back to the Game Bet Match podcast. I'm your host, Manny Friedman, along with my co-host, Brad.
Yeah, I'll go keep Brad Sloan. I guess I'll start. I guess I'm the first guy. We have a guest today, so yeah, I forgot.
Yeah. We got a special guest who is the voice of the MP9 podcast. We've been waiting to have him on.
He's also a father of two children.
Yes.
A man of many titles. Yes. Thank you. Hey, it's Dave Berger from the Match Point number 9, a Tennis Bets podcast. Thank you guys for having me on. Appreciate you guys also having a tennis betting podcast and growing the community, growing the space. And I'm excited to talk about tennis in the year 2024.
Yes. And
Yeah.
if we're fans of our pod, haven't checked out Dave's pod, by all means, he's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, you name it. He's definitely the better editor than us. We're more like an unfiltered long form pod, but if you want like 50 minutes of just pure tennis talk, MP9 is the place to go.
Appreciate that. Yeah, no, the edit, it is a labor of love. It is labor.
Is the labor being stressed or the love they're being stressed?
I was trying to think, it's not that much work. No, I mean, it is a little bit of work. Because there's other people that swear by these other apps of like, I don't know, you can identify the ums and stuff and immediately cut those out. I don't know. I'm not that tech savvy, so I just trust myself and my own editing skills.
Well, we're starting on Spotify, and thanks to your ad that you do with Spotify for podcasters, that's what gave me the idea. So, thanks.
Welcome aboard. I wish that they offered some sort of like kind of like a betting site. Like I could give you a link.
I know.
All right, so I think we're ready to jump into tennis.
Absolutely.
I've got a preseason line that I think is fun to kick us off. Novak Djokovic on Bovada is 50-1 to win all 4 slams this year plus the Olympics. Now, generally speaking, if you go on to almost basically any of the slams, right? Djokovic is usually even money or so to win the event. Right now, I'm seeing him around even money to win Australian Opens, between like even to plus 110, plus 115, depending on where you're looking. So if you just take that math and do that out, 50% to the 5th power, that's 1 out of 32. So like theoretical math tells me it's not a bad price. I won't be taking it. That it seems just that's a really hard thing to do, especially with the Olympics and US Open being close to each other. I'd also be afraid of the pressure closing in on Novak if he actually gets 3 or 4/5 of the way there. Plus the Olympics is a tournament. It's the only thing he's never won, and so I think there's a lot of pressure there. But I did think it was worth a discussion. So your guys' thoughts on that?
I honestly don't think it's worth a discussion. I would need at least 100-1 there, maybe 75-1. I would need, probably actually in the middle of 75-1 to 100-1, because I just think, first of all, I think the French is actually quite challenging for him to win. Like, I feel like the fact that Alcaraz was a favorite there and he was having that pressure there kind of helped Novak win that event. And I also think, no Nadal there last year. I know, we don't know the state of his injury, but like if he is healthy, we always have to factor him in there. And I feel that Wimbledon, the Olympics, and the US Open are just too close together to win all 3. And keep in mind that I know John brought this up on your pod, that like the Olympics are on clay. So the fact that you have to transition from clay to grass to clay to hard, that's very difficult. And like Father Time is undefeated. He's 38 now. I just think it's a really, really tough ask, especially with the rise of Sinner.
Yeah, I think about just 2 years ago when he was in maybe the best form of his entire career, on the precipice of winning all 4 slams, and he just straight up choked it against Medvedev.
But even now, I actually would disagree with the idea that he straight up choked it, because I felt like that whole tournament you could feel the pressure, like the walls closing in. And then he finally got, like, Zverev took him to 5. Like, the whole tournament, he didn't really play that well. I felt like you could feel it coming in the whole way, like closing in the whole time. And then finally, by the final to your point, David, he just, like, cracked. He just like fell apart. Like that was it. But you could see the walls closing in. I think that's why I wouldn't take it. But I did think it was an interesting discussion.
No, I the only thing I would say too, John, and we could have a talk about the actual odds. I mean, 2 weeks ago, the Buffalo Bills were 50-1 to win the Super Bowl, right? Like now they won 2 games in a row. That's gone. They're like in the teens to win the Super Bowl. So it's like, I just, for a long-term outright, I don't think it's a great price. I kind of agree with Manny that you needed like at least a triple digit, because all 5 in the put those all 5 of those feathers in the cap, it's going to be I think the actual odds of that are much higher than 50-1.
If it was all 4 slams without the Olympics, I would take it. But the fact that you're adding the Olympics in there, that makes it so much greater, because also that's 2 out of 3 sets where he hasn't been historically as dominant.
Well, there's just more variance, right? And best of 3
More
matches, just more
too.
variance in
Right.
general.
With the surface transition, with the traveling, it's just it's so much.
Yeah, we're all in agreement here. I guess you guys are harder on the no than I am, but we're all in agreement here. 51.
Well, for the sake of the yes, though, I mean, if you get over the first hurdle of the Australian Open, you do start to kind of think like, how could I maybe hedge out of this a little bit? I mean, because you're obviously probably not putting a lot of staking into it, so you have some time before if he takes down the Australian Open, you already got 1 down. Then you have some wiggle room come the French Open to figure out how to at least get your money back.
True.
That's true. That's true.
Very true. One line I wanted to talk about was Medvedev, or to reach 1+ Grand Slam finals. Medvedev is -170, Sinner is -120, Nadal is even money, Holger Rune is +175, and Tsitsipas is +225. Do any of those entice you?
Manny, can you share screen quickly? Just it's easier to see them all rather than remember what you said.
Absolutely.
Plus, I'm gonna have to look at your ugly face.
All right, there we go.
I don't know why Medvedev is almost a $2 favorite to reach a slam final. That's, I mean, realistically, he has what? Only 2 slams he can make. He's not going to make the Wimbledon final. He's not going to make the Roland Garros final.
He did win Rome. I mean, Medvedev did win Rome. I don't think you can say outright that he won't. I agree with you. It's unlikely. I'd put it maybe, I don't know, 10-1 or something, but I don't think it's like
really
impossible.
favorable draw. I think it's more like 20-1 for him to.
But wouldn't you say he had a I mean, he did have a prolonged clay season for him leading into Roland Garros, but he did lose first round.
I'm not saying he's a favorite to win Roland Garros. I'm just, I'm just saying he did better on clay last year than he has in a while. I think I'm not saying he's a top 5 player in the world even on the surface, but he does at least seem like he's like willing to try to play on clay, whereas in the past he seemed like completely disinterested. But I still agree with you. I think that -170 is insane. I think Nadal at even money is insane. Like,
agreed.
Like he's got to like. How many slams is he even gonna play? Like, we have no idea what Nadal's gonna look like. So throw him out.
I kind of disagree, because if he is like playing in healthy, like, it's a good shot of making the Roland Garros final. But you could probably get better odds at that point, and you don't want to have this. Like, he could also suck this entire way and you get better odds. But if he is up and healthy,
Djokovic or Alcaraz. Like, do you think he's a favorite against either Djokovic or Alcaraz?
But this is just to reach the slam final, right?
Well, like, those 2 guys are going to be top 2 in the world, so you have to beat one of those 2 theoretically to make the final, right?
That's fair. I hear you. Yeah. Okay. Continue. Yeah. Go ahead.
I actually think Sinner is a really tough matchup for him at this point as well, if he has to play him as well, just because of the ball striking and the constant pressure he's going to be under. So
I don't understand why you're paying juice for something that's literally never happened with Jannik Sinner to make a slam final.
So I don't know. Don't you think he's been like, quote unquote, paying his dues, and like it's just been trending in the right direction with his team and like what he's doing and how professional he's taking it? Like, don't you think?
I don't disagree, but you think about this. I know in this future market to Avery Zimmerman's point on our podcast, you're trying to, guess predictive versus basing this off past performance. But that said, Casper Ruud has made 3 slam finals. He's plus 270.
Yeah, I know, but the draws that he's had in those 3 slams were a reason why he's made it. It's not like he played anyone that great. I know he made those 3 finals, but
I think Zverev plus 300 to make a slam final. I hate Zverev.
Yeah.
I hate betting on him. I only bet on him like 3 times in 2023. But
it's the most enticing one to me too.
Yeah, I can't back Sinner. So an interesting thing about Sinner, I was looking at this. So Sinner, in terms of like on hard courts, on like points won, his points won percentage was actually better in the first half of the year than the second half of the year. What changed is that he somehow went 10-2 in the third set of matches in the second half of 2023. Like, I don't know. And then on top of that, you have the physicality issues with Sinner. So I can't pay minus juice putting those 2 things together for Sinner to make a final. So that's my thought there. I agree with you 100% on Zverev.
What odds would you need? What odds would you need to hit that?
I mean, probably at least plus 150 to, when it comes to Sinner in like long tournaments, best of 5s, I really discount his odds because of the physicality. We saw it against Zverev at the US Open. Like, if he runs into one tough match, he's in real trouble.
Okay, so you're still going on that narrative. So you think there's
so I have 2 narratives, right? My first narrative would be that he didn't really get that much better. He just won some close matches, right? And then the second would be that you still have the physicality issues. So yeah, he's got. There's a lot.
His percentage points won on serve higher though in that stretch.
It was close. It was like within 1%.
Really?
It's really, he's really not. Yeah, like.
I also think that there's some regression with Alcaraz. That's due.
That's an interesting perspective. I don't think that there's necessarily regression. I just think that he kind of is who he is. I think he could ascend. And I think even when I just think Alcaraz is one of the best player, if not the best player on tour, less Djokovic, but he is beatable. He gives, like, he lost to Fabian Marichal this year. He lost to like really random guys, and he pretty much tossed away like his post US Open season. So
did.
Well, it just seemed like he was completely done after Wimbledon, to be honest. Like, I would go back before I wouldn't go to, because post Wimbledon he didn't look good in the whole month of August. He had plenty of close matches. Like, didn't Max Purcell take a set off him?
Yeah,
injured Max Purcell in one of the
that epic match
tournaments
with Djokovic in Cincinnati kind of erased all the kind of subpar performances he had prior to that.
But that's one performance. I guess that's the issue with Alcaraz, though, right? Is like, yeah, you have those amazing matches, those amazing performances, but then like the consistency match to match, day to day. Is not
games with Alcaraz.
That said, he still is the second best player in the world. Like, I still have a hard time.
No, his top end is 1 or 2, but it's just he's very he's not tough to predict because he's always usually pretty good. And he came out in 2023 and dominated for the first, through Wimbledon, which he won really. He probably, if his mind didn't undercut his body in the French Open match against Djokovic, he probably wins that match too. I don't know. It's just, he's another one of these though, like him and his team have a plan for the season, right? So he's not a guy that's going out there and, which I guess maybe it's just like the end of the year, you're kind of like whatever on him. But you know how like Novak, between the Australian Open and French Open, that's kind of like the time to like pick off Novak. Clay season. Like, I feel like Alcaraz is post US Open. He has that area now, like 2 years in a row, where he just is like kind of done and he's easily beatable.
Well, he said
he's just kind of a different player than a lot of these guys because he's got a different agenda out there on tour.
I think you're right. You're right. I think I think I would back that take.
But he said that he's had to get stronger at that part of the season, and plus, I think his obsession with quote unquote catching Novak and like beating Novak is kind of hurting him in other areas. Like he's geared his game so much towards beating Novak that I feel like he's forgot how to play the rest of the tour. You know?
No, I don't disagree with that. I feel like some
I
of the
just think when I
unforced
look at-
errors too that we thought were gone are now we're creeping back.
I mean, when I look at these lines, like to reach 4 Grand Slam finals, Alcaraz at plus 600, like I think it's laughable.
Oh, that's laughable.
Like Grand Slam wins for Alcaraz, like 0 plus 350. Like I'm thinking of hitting that, to be honest. That's a really good number. I also think injuries are in play with Alcaraz, just the way he plays and all that. I'm not hoping he gets injured, but like if you're hitting that line and he does get injured for a good part of the year, like you're looking good with that plus 350 in your back pocket.
He's an overhead from not winning one this year, right? I missed overhead.
Yeah, you could.
Yeah, I don't think that's a terrible line either. The Alcaraz to win 0 cents at plus 350. Like, I'm not sure what I can't do the math like right off the top of my head, but it's somewhere between like a third and a quarter. Like on average, he's got to have like a 30% chance of winning every slam for that to be a bad bet. You know, somewhere between 25 and 30% chance of winning each slam. Like, what slam is he like what slam is he a favorite against Novak at?
I mean, what's his best slam? Let's start there. Is it Wimbledon?
Probably the French. And he's maybe a favorite there versus Novak. But then if Nadal's there, if Nadal's healthy, then that hurts that.
I would argue the US Open, to be honest.
Is his best slam?
Yeah. I think that his best service is like medium, slow, hard.
You're probably right. Like Indian Wells, he dominated, and that's slow, hard.
But he did not get through the US Open that he won in 2022 easily. That was 5-setter after 5-setter after 5-setter. Like I didn't think he played particularly well in that event. I just thought like
But if he plays well, he blows the field. You know, like he didn't play well, and he was just so much more of a beast, like physical and mental.
He doesn't blow Novak if he plays well. I mean, Novak is there with him.
Right. But I just think 0 is a good number. Like there have only been like 2 or 3 slams where I could say that Alcaraz played amazing in.
I still don't think I'd take it. Just like the problem I'll go back to what David said before. His top end is so high that you got to think he hits, or there's a decent chance he hits the top end in one slam.
I mean, I think I would assume he wins a slam this year. But that's, you know, when you assume, but the odds at plus 350 I think are pretty good considering he's usually juiced to the high heavens.
Right.
Yeah. But like, what is he to win the Aussie? I think the Aussie is like 250 or something.
That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. He should be plus 300 or more.
Yeah, he might lose. I mean, he might not even make it to the quarterfinals.
Ooh. I mean, are we that down on him right now? Like, I mean, I know he had a bad run post US Open, but like, I mean, why are we that down on him? Just because we haven't seen him play it in 2 years because he didn't play it last year? Like, you think it's too fast of a surface?
Well, it's fast. I think he struggles on fast, hard, to be honest. I also think he needs improvement on the serve a little bit, like getting some more free points. Like Djokovic, and even I felt like Sinner, maybe the stats don't back it up, but felt like he got way more free points like towards the end of the year. And like Alcaraz wasn't getting any of that. So I don't know. I'm slightly down on him. I like the 0. I mean, I think he wins a slam, but at that price,
I think it's a good price, but I don't know that I would actually bet it. I think that it's just like the top end is so high, and I just think
okay.
Another one I wanted to talk about. There's 2 more I wanted to talk about in terms of slams here. So that the next one is Sinner. I think I saw he's at plus 250 to win at least one slam. We talked about why I don't like that in the final segment, Manny. But do you like that or not? Plus 250 to win one slam. I know you're big on Sinner this year.
I'm big. I like this one at plus 300 because like I don't think he wins more than one.
Okay.
I don't. So I would rather take that than for him to win one plus at plus 250. What about you, Dave?
We talked center and Dave's moving. I think I'll keep it moving and go to the last one I like. And this is one that I'm actually thinking of hitting. This is kind of a Brad special. To Shelton to make 3 slam finals is 500 to 1. He made 2 semis last year. Like just based on pure upside, you know how little he's played tennis, right? Compared to these other guys. Like I know it's ridiculous, but you're getting 500 to 1. Like it's probably throwing your money out, but I mean, if he makes, like you can hedge out. I mean, there's a lot you can do if he makes a semi. If he makes a final of Australian, you can hedge out of it. Heck, if he makes a semi or a quarter of the Australian, you can start to hedge out. It's 500 to 1. Like man, for a guy with that much upside, like he could have gotten, like he's allowed to improve at tennis, right? And he's had such little experience. He's still young. The 500 to 1 seems pretty good there to me, but it's kind of a joke.
I am in the Shelton camp. I do think he's going to have a pretty good year. The only thing I would say is he is only eligible to make 3 of 4 slam finals. Like he's not going to make the French Open final.
Yeah, that is the problem. That is the real that is the killer, unfortunately, in this line, right?
Honestly, I would rather take Rublev at 500 to 1 because at least he plays the French or like.
Yeah, but Rublev's not making the Wimbledon final.
No, but I don't know. I would rather take that price.
And I see him. I see Shelton and Team. I see Team with the same price as Shelton for that.
Sure, that's
and like
that's wild.
That is, that is wild.
Like maybe 5 years ago, Team could make 3 finals, and I don't even know then because he was never good on grass.
That's just like a name to like for someone to. That's like definition of clickbait.
Away. Yeah. Well, enough of the Brad specials, but I think since we were talking about Shelton, let's transition to top American because I think that's a very interesting group of guys there. I
agree. I think this is a really good market.
It is a really good market. Where is it?
Because I think once you get to it, man, there's some guys who are on this board that we can just throw out, right? Like, Can we throw out everyone except the top 5 guys on that board? Like, there's guys taking up like a solid 10 to 20% that you can just throw out, like Cressy, Emo, Yerone, Nakashima. I mean, Mickelson's young, but he's way too far away. McDonald, Wolf, Eubanks, like none of those guys are getting to the top 20, right?
If any of those guys were 100 to 1, I still wouldn't take it.
Yeah.
Right. So it's basically a 5-man race here. Foe, Korda, Paul, Shelton, and Fritz. And they're all pretty good plus money. And
no, I agree. I think Fritz at plus 225 is a pretty good price to be like. I actually think I like the top end. I like the bottom end. The middle guys, I'm not so sure.
So I actually agree with you, David. So I like Manny and I talked about this on our preseason pod a week ago, and we talked about this middle of the year. Like I'm high on Fritz in terms of ranking because he's like the ultimate vulture guy. He's like a vulture. Like he just vultures those American tournaments. You got Dallas, Delray Beach. He may or may not play Houston because it's clay. You got Atlanta. You got you've got at least 5 or 6 tournaments there that he's just going to show up and vulture, and they're not strong fields. And he could easily get 1,500 points on those crappy American hardcourt tournaments that like nobody cares about except him. And like you need probably 3,000 to 3,500 points total to win this. Like that's I have a hard just based on that.
Plus,
I don't think he's a tennis player, but for Fritz, man, just given what you're looking for, I think this is good.
Plus, Fritz just to if he has any sort of bounce back in the slams, I mean, he's been so poor in the slams. That's kind of been what's keeping him from really rising up. But if he has a good US Open, a good Australian Open, heck, even he was on the precipice of making the quarters against.
He made quarters of the US Open, lost to Djokovic.
No, and quarters of Wimbledon, right, against Nadal, or was that to?
And
or
That was
the year
22.
before. He lost in the second round to, I think, Michael Ymer, his last match of
Yeah.
his career.
So he's got. I mean, the French Open, obviously, I would toss out with him, but 3 or 4 slams, I think he could do something at.
So the counterpoint I would make to that, David, is I looked at this over like middle of the season or near the end of the season. I know Manny and I had this debate on Fritz. His last 2 years outside of America, I think he's like 500 or something. Like he really struggles when and it's kind of, and it feels like it's been his whole career. Like what has he done in his career outside of like one event in Tokyo, not in America? Like you really need him to take as many points in America as possible. Now, granted, there's a lot of points out there. I mentioned the crappy tournaments. We've also got Indian Wells, which he won 2 years ago. You got Miami, you got US Open, you got Cincinnati. I think especially Indian Wells plays really well for him.
Oh yeah, he won it. Yeah.
Yeah, so like I still think there's a path there, but I do think the negative end would be that he really does not do much outside of America.
I think he's due for kind of a bad year. I don't know. I don't like where his game is heading. And I think he's so one-dimensional that guys have figured out how to play him. And like
I'll take the opposite in that mix. I'll say like maybe guys in the top 10, yes, but he still does fine at beating up like lower ranked guys.
yeah, it's only a matter of time. I don't see much improvement in his game in the last like year or last 6 months. Like I feel like he's been the same player now for the last 2 years, and it's kind of peaking out. And I think when you in ATP tennis, if you stay the same, you're falling backwards. And
my problem with Fritz is he just settles into rallies way too much. Like he can return. He's a pretty good returner, kind of an underrated returner, actually, because he can be in prolonged rallies and he could win some of them. But a lot of times he doesn't, and that's he'll literally just like hit back and forth, like he's not very tactical.
yeah,
well, I also think
like,
the problem
kinda,
is too. I think, but I
rooted
think more
in.
than that. Like, I think he's just a very stiff athlete.
That's
like
fair.
he's just very like he looks like Robo Man, like running to the ball, like. And I think that's a problem too. Like, I don't think he knows what like he does. I don't think it's like some of it's tactical. I don't know if he can. Like, I don't know if he's athletic enough to switch it up.
and he's terrible at the net. Like whenever he goes to the net, he just looks lost. Like I don't know. I like Shelton here at plus 350. And
Certainly someone that like I if it was like the Corda or Tiafoe price, I would be all in on Sheldon for sure. Because he also like is someone who I think, aside from what he does on the court, it seems like his team quite understands the point system and the ranking system. I mean, you look back on his his year, he is where he is based off slams, and he was pretty poor in other spots on the calendar. So
he was
they're
a lot better. He was a lot better the second half of the year.
well,
His return
hardcore
points won percentage went up by like, and granted, it was because he was so bad in the first half of the year, but like he did get to like 35% return points won percentage the second half of the year. That's not terrible given where he was the first half of the year, which is like under 30.
I mean, he's clutch. He's a clutch athlete, and that's going to take you pretty far on this tour because a lot of these guys are not clutch.
But if he can be even an average winner and an average rallier, he has the big game and the clutch, like the clutch piece. Like if he's even an average returner, average rallier, I think he wins this.
But we were saying at the end of 2022 that Tiafoe was clutch, right? Because he was winning every single tiebreak. Remember in that US Open run, like to the semi?
I've never thought of him as clutch.
Okay, but
Tiafoe's so tough because it's like the problem with Tiafoe is like his energy level is so variable, man. Like he can just show up.
But my point with Shelton
energy.
is he was winning every tiebreak in the later part of the year, right? So if that doesn't happen, I'm a little bit worried.
But he also got that return points. That's why I brought up the return points one, Manny. He got that up from like 35%, which is pretty close to average. Whereas the first half of the year he was under 30, which is like down in like the Isner range. Well, so like I do think he's actually he actually did get better at tennis also.
Okay.
But to your point, Brad, about Fritz being not athletic, I mean, Shelton is a much better athlete than Fritz, and that's going to take him first off, I mean, his athleticism for his first year on clay was pretty evident. Like I only see him improving on that surface. It wouldn't shock me if Ben Shelton has a better clay season than Taylor Fritz.
Oh, it wouldn't at all for me either. Because like the other thing is you have to remember with Shelton is how I talked about it 5 minutes ago, but how inexperienced he is at tennis. Like he didn't pick up the sport as a junior the way these other guys did. You know, what was it, 2 or 3 years ago? He was the number 6 player at the University of Florida. Like the curve has been like this.
Right.
I mean, you know, so and like why would it stop? Why can't he improve if he's dedicated?
I agree.
I wish it was plus 400 because I would hammer it, but plus 350 is right on the precipice where it's probably the right set line.
I think I'm going to hit the top 2 here. I think it's either Fritz or Shelton. I mean, Shelton has the highest upside and Fritz has the floor. I just like it's hard to see Paul. I think this is probably a 2-man race the more I think about it, because like Korda's always fun, but like he's just like, man, you and I have talked about him endlessly. He always disappoints.
He does.
So I agree, but Korda has the natural talent and ability to be the top American.
He does.
He and the price is 5-1. That's the only thing about the Korda. The Korda price, like if Korda had a great start to last year, if he doesn't get hurt and completely fall off the map, like if he has any sort of positive regression, he's right in the mix. But he is, I mean, Tommy Paul, I would toss out. I love Tommy Paul. He's a great player on this tour, top 15 player. He just is mentally like,
yeah. Yep.
Oh, it's amazing when you see Tommy Paul on a big point. Well, the fascinating with Tommy Paul is that on a big point, he forgets how to move his feet. He's one of the most athletic players on the tour for the entire match. And then it gets to like match point or like, you know, the key points of the match, and he can't move. He moves worse than Fritz.
He's taken years off my life just betting his matches this year.
I mean, Korda's more or less the same in terms of that, but Korda, I think, has a little bit. I mean, he's like a bigger dude. Like he can hit. Like it's just. I don't know.
I don't know.
There's fitness issues with him too. It's not like he gets hurt. There's fitness issues. I just think he's going to be. I feel like he's going to be that guy where you're going to be sitting there thinking like he's got this talent and he's always going to be like who he is, which is like he pops for matches, he pops for tournaments, and then he goes away for 8 months.
Korda's serve also and forehand, I've said on multiple occasions, I think are liabilities. And until he really improves that aspect, I can't see him being in the top 10. I don't know. Because, like, okay, realistic, to win this bet, to be the top ranked American, you basically have to be at the edge of the top 10, right?
Yeah.
Right? Like, you have to be between, like, 8 and 9. So, basically, who can get there?
Fritz has done it in the past, and Shelton.
That's why, to me, Fritz is the number one guy here, is because he's done it in the past. Like, I think he's due for regression. That's just me.
I would make the argument for Tiafoe because he left a lot of points on the table with bad. I mean, lost to Wawrinka in like round 2 of Cincinnati. He had a bad end of the year.
Bad Wimbledon.
Yeah, but I'm going to turn around and say, can Tiafoe play a whole good year? That's
fair.
His energy level is just like, it's so up and down. Like, it's not like he lost in Cincinnati in those tournaments at the end of the year because he got like unlucky or something. Like, he lost to Raonic and looked terrible. Like, he looked like he could barely play tennis.
Yeah. So one thing with Tiafoe is he just hired a new coach. So sometimes, especially in the NFL, right? Like when a team just fires their coach and get a new coach, usually back them in that spot because they have that kind of boost, right? I don't know if we can say that with Tiafoe. Like,
this is a full year though, right? Like, I don't know, man.
That's true. But I might actually back him in one of those Australian tournaments, warm-up tournaments, or back him to do pretty well because of that aspect.
I'll be interested to see what the coaching change does for Tiafoe, because I do think Wayne Frere was how should I put this? He was I don't think gelled with Tiafoe all the time. I think there was a bit of a back and forth in that relationship. So if you got more of a cheerleader here, maybe that is good for him. Maybe it's bad for him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it could be bad. That's true. Because then he needs some guy that's kind of like X's and O's and like gets him to grind on every point and not just clown, that kind of thing.
No, but I think that's the problem. He needs somebody who's going to motivate him. to have the energy and who's going to work with him to have the energy for every match. That's in
Yeah,
my mind, that's
He's
the
motivated
challenge.
when he has a big crowd in front of him, but if he's playing like on court 7, with 2 people in the stands, like he just
Got to
doesn't
have those girls in the stands, man.
yeah. I just get the feeling that like Wayne was like someone who expected Tiafoe to like do the work, and not that Tiafoe doesn't do the work, but do the work in the way that like Wayne did like 20 years ago
Yeah.
or 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and that just was never going to happen. So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see what the coaching change.
So I'm going to sprinkle on the Shelton plus 350. Brad, you're hitting the Fritz and the Shelton.
Yeah.
And Dave, are you sprinkling anything here?
I talked about the Korda and the Tiafoe. I like the longer shots here.
Okay.
And
Fair.
yeah, just at the prices for me.
Okay.
I think it's a great market though, because you have, again, like we talked about before, you have literally like, what is that, like 30% or 40% of the market going just complete clowns who have zero chance.
Yep. What about the top Brit? I don't think it's on Bovada.
I mean, we can talk it out for sure. I think it's an interesting one. I mean,
It is.
The names would be what? Norrie, Draper, and Evans would be the 3 to talk about, because Murray you can just throw out. We talked about it on our preseason pod, Manny. Murray. Oh, it is on Bovada. It's a player. It's one of the specials. Yeah, it's in there somewhere. It's not a slam special. It's another special. They have like players. They have like provided specials or something.
Oh yeah, and the players to finish in this order, I think, is how it's phrased.
Yeah. It's not slam. Yeah, go back and it's
I want to see a full year of healthy Jack Draper, man. Like the guy is really good. I think he's one of the better players on the tour.
But I mean, he's also one of the worst in terms of fitness.
He was roasting Minaur in that match that he lost to him. What was that, Tokyo? I mean, his body completely failed him in true Jack Draper style. Yeah. But he was dominating that match.
There it is.
Norrie top 15, Draper top 20, Murray top 30. Well, Murray top 30 makes it like you can't hit that.
I guess maybe they pulled it down, but yeah, I think, I don't know, man. It's tough because like, so does Dan Evans have a shot to be the top Brit? Like, what line would you need to take for Dan Evans to be the top Brit? Just because like he's there. Like Draper has fitness issues. Norrie was absent for the back half of 23, and he'll be lucky to finish top 50. Honestly, he's just so limited with the hip now.
Didn't John say that there was a positive regression with Evans?
The problem with that is that while Dave gets ready to speak again, the problem I have with go ahead, Dave.
No, what I was going to say is, I think Evans is pretty live for sure. He had a pretty bad year last year and he was pretty fadeable, but listen, so was Cam Norrie, and Draper has obviously got the physical issues, and Murray is like one leg off the tour. So yeah, I think Evans is pretty live.
To me, the problem with Evans is like it all depends on if he wants to be there, right? Like there's definitely a fair number of matches he's just going to throw in the towel in every year. There's probably 5 or 6 towel throws.
Where are you guys at with Cam Norrie? Because I kind of like he's a full, like John talked about on our podcast about FAA. Like I have more belief in FAA than he talked about. FAA needs to show him. Like Norrie's a full show me, man. Like this guy stinks right now.
100%. I think he's another guy. People have figured out how to play him, and he's just not a very good athlete. Like he has that loopy forehand, and he has that flat backhand. But the thing which makes him is rally tolerance, right? It's just like lung capacity and rally tolerance. And if that's not working, and people are hitting through him, he's really, really going to struggle. Like, I remember Arnaldi at the U.S. Open was like plus 300 to beat him. And like, he beat him straight sets, like easily. So I'm
in between on Norrie because like,
I hope we
on
don't.
one hand, he was absolutely terrible after the Golden Swing. Like he actually had put up some points in the Golden Swing, and then like he can't have gotten more than 1,000 points after March. On the flip side, like when you he just to what Manny said before, when you watch him play, you're like, how does he win? Because he doesn't have anything special.
No, well, that was the thing about his like hot run to start off the year, because he did up the winners, the amount of winners he was hitting, because he doesn't hit winners. Like that's not part of his game.
No,
like
he
it's
doesn't
like
hit winners.
And so that's what was kind of feeling his like hot run, was he really was actually hitting winners during that run, but that dropped off.
But I'm a little bit I'm optimistic, because I think the market is actually going to still be quite high on Norrie. The fact that they have him to be top 15, like as a question mark, like I think he's going to be out of the top 30 if he doesn't like change something drastic. So I think we're going to get some like decent lines on Norrie matches like early in the year.
I think we should use that as
a year last year was for him. He was still top 20, but he still finished the year 19th somehow. And the answer is Golden Swing. But like some of these guys, like it's another guy like that for me is Holger Rune. Like he somehow got top 10. Like despite having a terrible year, he's somehow into the top 10. Norrie's like that, but a level lower. Like he's somehow still finishing the top 20 guys.
Right. Well, yeah, he took down that 500 though, right?
Rio, right? I think Rio he took down.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. It just felt like
and he was in another 250 final that he lost to Gasquet.
Oh, in Auckland. That's right.
And didn't he make a 250 final in Golden Swing as well, or a 250 final? Did he make another?
Well, Buenos Aires, and he lost to Alcaraz.
Alcaraz, yeah.
Yeah, so that's another 150 points. So like that's your answer as to how he got there, because I think he only got like 2,000 points total. Like it's amazing, but like that's part of the thing, right? Like you don't really need to do all that much to get to the top 20.
Yeah.
Look at Jan-Lennard Struff, man. What was he, like 21 or 22?
25, I think, but yeah.
He didn't even play for like 3 months.
Yeah.
I know, it's crazy.
And he wasn't even playing really on the Pro Tour for 3 months. Like he wasn't even he basically played on the Pro Tour for like 3 months and somehow got 25th.
Well, Struff and Eubanks are my two biggest regression candidates in the top 50. I don't think there's any question. Like, can anyone disagree with that?
No, the only thing I would say about Eubanks is I do think that he is now in full like serve bot category, and botting can take you pretty far. And I don't think he's not to the heights of Struff. So Struff is just way too high. He is not a top 30 player.
He's not, and he has that Madrid final to defend. And that's
the problem with Struff, right? If you look, like all his points are like 2 or 3 tournaments, which is always scary. And it's always true for everybody to some extent, but like he's extreme. Well, again, he didn't even play like 9 months of the year. So like
there's also just going to be a lot of hardcore opportunity for Eubanks.
Well, and he's another guy who, anytime we talk about Americans, like there's a ton of American tournaments that have weak fields. Yeah. Dallas, Delray Beach, like you can just go there and steal like 500-600 points. Just like
he's going to lose do better at Wimbledon next year, and it's just, I don't know. I don't think his style of botting is like great. Like
he also won a grass tournament, right?
Yeah, he won Mallorca. That's right, exactly. So he had an amazing year. I think I wouldn't be surprised if he's out of the top 75.
Yeah. I can't argue against it, really, honestly.
I also agree, but I do think Eubanks is different than Struff. I think Eubanks has more of a chance to stay in than Struff.
I also think he cares a lot about broadcasting. I think he wants to do what we're doing right now.
So. I don't even know if that matters, though, to be honest. Like he's a full serve bot. Like, does it really matter? Like, does he have to go out and do much besides practice his serve like an hour a day? Like,
all right, we got to talk about
his backhand can land too. Like he can land a backhand.
He lands it, but sometimes when I watch it, I'm like, how did he do that? Like, I have no idea.
I know,
I feel like it was complete luck.
That's the vibes of it, but it's better than. I think it's better than people give credit.
Yeah, I agree. Aces. Anyone going with anyone besides Hurkacz?
I think there's an argument for a few guys. If you pull up the line, Manny, I think there's a discussion here.
These are hard to find.
It's like player specials.
Oh,
yeah, there you go. You found it.
There we go.
So is it like, why is Opelka plus 275? Is he even healthy? Like, I know when he plays, he's by far the best server on tour. But like, is he realistically going to play 40 matches?
Yeah, I don't know. That's the thing though, is like Opelka is basically like Isner 2.0, and like Isner like 30 matches is like, Hubie like 50 matches in terms of aces. You know what I mean? Like they just hit so many, like that's literally their style. So I was, when I talked about this on our podcast, like I don't know if he is healthy or if he's going to play. Like, but if
I haven't seen anything on him. Have you guys seen any news on Opelka? I've seen nothing. I even tried to look. I can't find anything.
He played one match this year on a challenger.
Yeah,
but if I'm just saying, if he was to play for the entire year, he probably would be the ace leader.
If he plays 50 matches, he's almost a lock.
Yeah.
The only guy who can challenge him if he plays if Opelka plays 50 matches is Kyrgios if he plays 50 matches.
Right.
Because Kyrgios is in that same league. And like looking at it, like, man, 33-1 looks kind of appetizing there. Like, I know he's not healthy, and like I can't imagine he's actually gonna play 50 matches.
Don't fall into the trap. I think he might be good for his career.
Yeah, I don't know that Nick Kyrgios is gonna play another tennis match.
I agreed. If I got plus 150 on that, I'd take it. For him not. He does seem
to be quite active on the social media.
He's doing OnlyFans, like
talk shows.
Has he joined Tomic on OnlyFans?
He's signed a deal with OnlyFans.
Him and Tomic, man, that's amazing. They should do an OnlyFans like a group thing. Two of them and some other people in there just for the lulz. Like,
That's hilarious. I personally, I can't go with anyone besides Hubie at plus 165. I actually think that that's a decent number.
On a serious note, I actually think the other interesting number here is Fritz at 25-1.
Yeah,
he
Fritz was number 2.
Year.
Yeah, he was 550.
Really?
Yeah, that's the only thing about this market too. Is like what's crazy is like the first, second, and third, they're like hundreds of aces apart.
Yeah.
So this is something, if you actually stumble upon the winner, like it's going to be sweat free probably for quite a bit of time.
True. It's true.
But Fritz, I mean, he was second last year, I think by a pretty good margin. I mean, Hurkacz hit like 400 more, but if something happens to Hubie, Fritz is like a nice combination. He doesn't like, his serve's not the best, but he's going to play a ton of matches.
Yeah,
a lot
he's going to play a lot of
fast
matches.
Sports.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, he's going to play a lot of matches. You're right.
Like,
I took
man.
last year, and I thought he would play a lot of matches. He just lost in every first round match, so.
I mean, if you're way down on Fritz, and obviously you don't want to bet this because part of this is the guy winning enough matches to do decently well, but I think Fritz is an interesting. I think, on a serious note, I think he's the only other look here besides Hubie. Because everybody else is like, in my mind, you could almost, I mean, like one of these other guys might win, but I can't say it's better than any other guy on the board.
Yeah, I'm not hitting it just because
Sheldon doesn't hit that many aces. He hits rocket serves, but his location's not that great, so he doesn't get that many aces.
Yeah, I would hit Hubie, but I just don't want to lock my money up for 11 months with this market, so I'm not. But like I think it's actually a decent price. Like, I really think it should be like plus 130, plus 140 for Hubie, but that's just me.
I mean, if he plays 60 matches, he probably gets it. It's just a matter of, does he stay healthy?
Right.
You mentioned locking the money up, and we talked about that on our podcast because this is the longest season-long market, unless you bet like even NFL. I don't think that opens up until like March, and then it pays out like January. So I guess it's a similar time. But I remember I was thinking back to when like crypto went bust for a little bit. Yeah. It was like, man, if you just had your money in the sports book, you would have been fine. So like there are worse places to tie your money up for a year. Especially if you're going to hit like 3 or 4, you're going to get a decent return on your investment. So it's not like the worst idea. I mean, obviously like that's not like the best financial advice, but I'm just saying like it's not the worst bet you can make, especially if you have some edge. And it also helps you recoup some, like if you have a bad fall or like, it helps you recoup some units back at the end of the season.
It does always feel good. Like I went way too, to your point, like last year I went way too heavy in the futures market. And it was kind of cool because like at the end of the year, like I actually ended up like maybe plus 5%. But like just the number of units that came back to my account because of all the stuff that was like held out in that market for a year was like kind of cool to see. Like I didn't realize when it was going to pay out, and then I looked at my account one day and I had like 35, 40 more units, and I was like, this is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Let's
again, terrible financial advice, but like
we're no financial advisors.
Yeah,
for sure. So Zverev or Rune to be ranked higher. Zverev is minus 125 or Holger Rune is minus 110. I personally like Zverev there.
How can you pick against Zverev here, given how like basically the first 3 to 5 months of last year were a complete throwaway while he was kind of getting back to like kind of fully regenerating, and he still beat Rune. I don't see how you can go against Zverev on this one.
No, yeah, Zverev, I think that's actually a really great price. I mean, here's the thing. Zverev had that freak injury, but otherwise has been pretty durable. His diabetes has ticked up a bit, but that's manageable on court, where Rune is like someone who can literally miss for a long time because his body is made of gingerbread.
Well, and the problem is too, it's in individual matches Rune's going to give out. Like Zverev is one of the most fit guys on tour when the diet, you throw out 3 matches a year, like 3 tournaments a year, the diabetes is going to hit him. It's going to be he's just going to lose. Like that's going to happen. But like that's way less matches than Rune is going to lose because his body gives out in like the third set.
But Brad, you brought up on our previous pod about the.
You're right. This is the problem. This is the problem.
Like
if Zverev faces trial for that domestic assault case that he appealed the penalty order on, if he gets convicted, like, does he serve jail time? And if not, does he get suspended? It's not a fun thing to talk about, but
I mean, that's why I'm not hitting this, just because of that fact. Like,
plus too, like, it's a season-long market, and you might get better odds on a head-to-head matchup throughout the year. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
you will for sure. And actually, with both these guys, to your point, David, for both these guys, I'd way rather hit these guys on individual day things, given what we just said, than on anything season long, because you've got major question marks on both sides.
Yeah.
Sinner or Medvedev, both minus 120.
I mean,
No thanks. I have these guys dead even.
Med has to have more of a regression to me than Sinner. Sinner obviously has the injury concern, but in terms of who's due for more regression, it's Daniil Medvedev. I mean, he was on fire to start, post AO, right? And then he kind of tailed off, and then he makes who's to say he makes the US Open final again? You know what I mean?
Agreed. And
I told you why I don't like about Sinner. I'm not that impressed with Sinner's second half run. I'm also like, I have both these guys as candidates.
Well, that's exactly what DraftKings has it. They're both minus 120, and you're giving extra 10 cents of juice too. So it's a no hit. I'm high.
These are tough.
I would lean Sinner, but Tsitsipas or Rublev. They're both minus 120. I actually really like Rublev here. What do you expect of Tsitsipas this year?
I mean, listen. Tsitsipas is like, if you ask someone off the street if he had that knows tennis, it's like, did he have a good or bad year last year? He'd be like, yeah, he was pretty bad. It was like, well, he finished 6th and he had 50 wins. You know what I mean? Right. Like, his bad year is still pretty good. Yeah. So I don't know. I think that he plays a lot. He plays a ton. I think he's got potential to make the final of all the slams, less grass. He's not very good on grass. But here's the thing about grass too. It's like, he doesn't really I feel like he gets so burned out playing it so much throughout like the first part of the year that grass season he just kind of takes off. But if he was like committed to playing on grass, I think he could be okay on it.
Well, this year he had the love story with Paula Badosa, so it's like,
yeah, that seems more like solidified. Like, there's not like young love like that like he can kind of probably manage.
But it also seems like he's not prioritizing tennis because he knows that there's such a steep mountain to climb with the top 4 guys where he's like clearly behind them, and I feel like that's deflated him a little bit in terms of his tennis.
Maybe he only made 3 finals last year. I think he'll probably make 5 finals this year. If I had to guess,
I would take the under on that personally, and I don't think he's going to make Australian Open final again. That's for sure.
No, but the only 2 he made was the one he won in Los Cabos, right? And then I forget what the other one was, but I don't know. I still think as much as I think he stinks, I also think he's good.
There's also, I think, something we have to mention
Good
here when it
comment.
comes to Tsitsipas. Like, to your point, David, like you just mentioned Los Cabos and Mallorca, and like he played Mallorca last year. Like he plays some weak tournaments. It feels like
Yeah.
Rublev picks like the strongest tournament every week to go to. Like he plays a ton, but it feels like he plays like the strongest schedule he possibly can, pretty much.
Tsitsipas just went to Los Cabos just to have a vacation with Badosa, and the field was so weak, and he played de Minaur in the final that he ended up taking a trophy home. Like, let's be
That's
honest.
fine. He gets points for that, though, man. He, like all the like points are points.
Well, if the love is not young, he might not go to Cabos again. That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think he usually does that. He usually does the same thing Rublev does and just goes to the strongest event. I just like, he's a guy like, I got to see you hit a backhand and return some serves before I can back you again. And I know he had a decent year, but like he couldn't return Sophia Kennan's serve in that exhibition the other day. I don't know if you saw that. But
no, but I'm not taking too much away from what's happening now.
okay, fine.
I was gonna say the same thing, Manny. This is not the part of the year that I watch. I think this is when I take a nap. Like, wake me up when the matches count.
He was probably pre-gaming for 50 Cent before that. I don't know
but we got to comment on how good Rublev has been. I mean, I don't know. I think he really solidified being the fifth best player in the world at the end of the year.
No, you're right. He had a great year. And what's frustrating is I kept picking him week after week on our podcast, like right after the Australian Open, and he kept getting like kept losing.
Yeah.
And then he finally broke through with Monte Carlo. And then he had a pretty good year after that as well. That was kind of like the kindling for a pretty good run. Rublev is really good. His backhand has improved a ton.
He's gotten a lot better at tennis. Like we kind of like, and he seems like he's gotten like more athletic, like a little more athletic. He's playing a little smarter tactically. Like it just seems like he's gotten like he seems like he's gotten better. He's also a guy who like there are zero motivation concerns ever with Rublev.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. I mean, to your point, Manny, about Tsitsipas and his love story and the whole Badosa whatever thing, like Rublev is just a tennis dude, man. Like that guy lives, eats, and breathes tennis.
100%.
And that
100%.
That's always, if you're betting on Rublev, that's always something you can kind of take to the bank. It's like he's pretty mentally neutral. Well, he's not mentally neutral because he does like kind of spaz out, but he's neutral in terms of like his dedication to his craft.
Well, we take a lot of stock into guys who are just there, right? Who can withstand an entire season. And I think there's a short list.
But Rublev's better than just there.
I agree, but like Rublev, Khachanov, Medvedev, de Minaur, like these are guys that are just able to withstand a season, right? Whatever it takes, right? And they're just always there. And those are guys that I want to back in a futures market more than anything else,
That's fair.
And that list is very short. There might be like 3 or 4 more guys, and that's it.
Yeah, I'm gonna hit de Minaur here, or not de Minaur. I'm gonna hit de Minaur. Rublev.
Rublev? Yeah.
I actually this is one I actually like. It's probably the only one of the. I agree with David's comment. These are tough, but this is the one I actually like. I like Rublev here. I just think there's like, if you're talking about season long ranking points, Rublev seems like a good guy to just rack those up slowly over time.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Before we have to go, let's quickly touch on these United Cup lines. There are a couple.
Before I was gonna say, quick segue, because we were talking about Norrie, and the Norrie Demon one is a good one to kick it off with, I think.
Is there one on DraftKings?
No, your United Cup.
Oh, United Cup. Oh, okay. Yep, Norrie and de Minaur. So Norrie is plus 134 on the money line, and de Minaur is minus 175. I don't see any game spreads, but what does that usually equate to? Like a 2-game favorite?
Probably 1.5, 2, something like that.
That's what I would think. Yeah,
I will take de Minaur there.
I was like, I don't love heavy minus 175 favorites. Usually, like minus 170 is my like cutoff to like bet a favorite. But yeah, I mean, what that Especially
That's
it's in Australia, right? I mean,
Yeah, in Australia. Yep.
what has Norrie done for me to bet him at plus 134 in this matchup?
Nothing.
Like, if anything, I feel like Demon should be over minus 200.
Agreed.
I guess the only thing I would say to counter that, and I don't know that it's actually valuable, but like style matchup wise, de Minaur is not blowing Norrie off the court.
It is a
And
match.
Norrie's
Yeah.
not blowing de Minaur off the court either, but that like the fact these guys have kind of similar styles makes me think maybe this is a little more even just because of that.
That's fair.
But as we said, Norrie doesn't hit winners. And if he doesn't hit winners, how's
But de Minaur doesn't either.
Right. I guess I just think the Demon is he's a lot more accurate. Like he can withstand rallies a lot more than Norrie. Like Norrie sails his forehand. Like it is not reliable. I mean, maybe it bounces back here at the start of this season, but
but when he was playing well, it was okay, right? Like that's like it was good, it was better. That's the problem, right? Is like he needs that. Like if he's hitting it well, he's got a chance. If he's not, yeah, he's in trouble in general. Not even just this match, but just in general.
So the last time they played was in Toronto this year, and de Minaur won 7-5, 6-4 in the first round.
And those would be much more friendlier close courts for Norrie. Those Toronto
Norrie
courts.
got him at last year's United Cup. It's 2-1. de Minaur's the head-to-head here, but Norrie got him at last United Cup. I don't think that's particularly meaningful, but it's kind of an interesting side note.
No, one is going one direction and one is going the other direction. But that might be the reason why this line is the way it is. But I agree with you, Dave. I'm gonna be all over that. I'm probably gonna lay the games, to be honest, because I think there are going to be quite a few breaks. So I don't mind laying games in this matchup.
I won't be touching it. I can like I hate playing these early season matchups when you just don't know where guys are at, and like where their mind is at, where their body's at, what their purpose of playing this match is. I've got like I can make a kind of a case for Norrie, just that it can be even at least in like a variance case. I'm not touching it.
How about Griekspoor and Casper Ruud? I like Griekspoor there at plus 165.
Dude, Griekspoor is like maybe the most underrated player on this tour in terms of the market. Like we were before we hopped on, I was talking about betting him at the City Open in Vegas in DC.
Yeah.
Like, what? Why was he plus 200 against Fritz? Now he's plus 165 on a hard court against Ruud. Like on a quick.
And this is gonna be a quicker hard court. I'm imagining this is Australian.
Yeah.
It's an Australian hard court, so it should be a quicker hard court too, right?
What have we seen from Ruud for him to be minus 222 on a quick hard court?
He did make the U.S. Open final 18 months ago.
But those aren't.
I'm joking. That was a joke. But I like how much you jumped on that there, Dave. That was good. Manny does that to me sometimes too.
No, but I hear what you're saying. I know. Yeah, it's good. Okay, yeah. I mean, if I'm just betting money line again, I was talking. We were talking before we got on here about how I was in Vegas, and you can't bet games at books in Vegas a lot of times, and when you're just pressed to the money line, it kind of makes you like really examine who you want to back, because where is that value? And we're in that situation here with no games line. It's like plus 165 on the money line for Griekspoor. It's like that's an easy click for me.
That is so. I told Manny I had no interest in this. I wasn't going to bet it. I'm glad Manny showed me the lines, because I think you have to hit Griekspoor at 165.
Family play. Let's go.
Like it's too good, right? Like 165 against Ruud on a hard court, getting 100%. Plus 165 with a solid player.
That's a great line.
To me, that's just too good. Like
I hope this line doesn't move, because as soon as it's out on the books that we bet on, I'm hammering that if I get that price.
Like, shouldn't he be like plus 125 Griekspoor?
I think it should be.
I mean, I think you can make an argument that Griekspoor could be favored. I get why Ruud's the favorite. I'm not saying, but I'm saying I could make a case for Griekspoor being a favorite here.
Plus 100
on a hard court.
That's where I would put it.
Yeah.
But, how about this match? Yuri Lechka and Zhizhen Zhang. That's a very interesting match. Lechka is minus 164 and Zhang is plus 124. I think you got to go with Zhang there at plus 124.
I don't know. I like Zhang as a much higher favorite. I did bet Leheshka in this setup last year against Fritz. That was like my first bet of 2023. Okay. He did not come through for me, but he's obviously someone who I like. Is why I brought that up.
But Lechka had such a bad end of the year. And like it just seemed like every time he would face some adversity, he'd always fall flat on his face. Like he just wouldn't find his way out of it. And I kind of felt the opposite of
But
Zhang.
didn't he get hurt? Was it Lechka that got was it Lechka that got hurt at the end of that, like hurt his foot or something in Winston-Salem?
Yeah, that could be. But he still played the rest of the year. He didn't take any time off. And
Yeah, but I mean, a lot of these guys play hurt,
played
right?
pretty
Like,
well in
Purcell
Davis.
played with a broken foot for 3 months.
He played
right?
Davis Cup. He played really well in Davis Cup. So it's like he showed some signs of promise. It's just I think mentally he just kind of faltered. But
I'm not hitting this. This looks like a pure stay away to me.
Right? We love Zhang as a dog or pass guy.
Yeah, but plus 124 is not like, I mean, it's a dog, but it's a short dog.
Yeah, this is I think I have to pass at these prices.
Okay.
I mean, I would like to play. I like Zhang as a dog. It's just he's not a big enough dog for me here.
All right, and then the first match of the year that we're getting next Thursday, I guess this is where we'll end off, is Fokina and Seyboth Wild. What are your thoughts on Fokina? Like we were discussing on our last pod, will he win an ATP tournament this year? Would you? I think yes or no.
I think Fokina is one of the best players on this tour. He's one of the most mentally weak, though. So that's his ultimate detriment. His game is really awesome.
It is.
He just can't put it together mentally, man.
I know.
This one is interesting to me because
yep.
I feel like plus 167 is a little telling. Like the dog might be live in this because
is this also one where you can read the line and say like, I don't really subscribe to this very often, but like 167 just feels like it's way like if you just put these two players on a hard court, right? I feel like Fokina should be a way bigger favorite just on pedigree.
Correct.
But this is like this line almost like it's almost one of those where it's like too good to be true, and it might be it might be like false because it's too good to be true.
Exactly. I mean, Fokina is not the best on a quick hard court, but yeah, I don't know.
But is Wild like this to me looks like a pure stay away too. Again, it's like a first match of the year. Like, oh, I don't know, man.
I think I'm going to take the Seyboth Wild to win a set and Minaur parlay. That's
there you go.
That's how I'm going to play Minaur money line. That's how I'm going to play the first day.
I will say Fokina is the best live bet guy ever. Like has to be one of my best prints of 2023. It's just like anytime there's a break in a Fokina match one way or the other, you just bet the re-break, especially if Fokina breaks. Like the next game, you get 3-1 pretty much like for a break back, and it's like a guarantee, especially if it's like the business end of the set.
Just keep tabs on that because like that's one of the best live bets we've had all year. It's hit so many times. I would say like 10, 11 times.
It feels like it's a true 50-50.
Yep.
And you get like 3-1 on it. It's amazing.
Yeah. Especially when, as you said, especially when Fokina breaks, he gets broken back so often because he just relaxes mentally that little bit. And when he does that, he just completely falls off the rails. The
opposite can happen too. When he goes down a break, he suddenly like gets serious and like realizes that he has to play well, and then he breaks back.
So true.
All right, boys. Unfortunately, I kind of have to go here.
Sure.
Yeah, well, I think we're done here. I don't think there's too much else going on. This is usually when Manny and I get into like some psychedelic rants about who knows what.
Yeah, well, thanks for coming on. We much appreciate it, and all the best to you and your family.
I know. Thank you guys so much. It was a pleasure coming on. I look forward to doing it again.
Absolutely. All right, take care, Dave. See ya.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
All right. Well, any final thoughts? That was great to have Dave on.
Yeah, honestly, I think we basically were done. That was a pretty yeah. That was the end of any tennis
preseason.
But yeah, there wasn't too much else to talk about. If there's any more interesting lines that come up that we want to bet, we'll definitely post them. But otherwise, it was a fun preseason, and we'll be back next week for week 1.
Absolutely. Can't wait for these matches to start. What, Thursday night?
For United Cup, yeah.
I think so.
Like, even the one I'm betting is just like so in terms of bets, I mean, the only match I'm betting is going to be that that the Griekspoor Ruud. That's the only line I really like. I don't know, man. Are you actually going to bet those couple you were talking about?
Probably. I'm just so excited. I just can't help myself.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and as far as like the preseason lines, I'm probably just going to head to Shelton plus 350 to be top American.
Yeah, it's tough for me to find a whole lot else. I tend to agree. It's
the
tough.
Rublev over Tsitsipas, the minus 120.
Yeah, those are my hits. The Rublev over Tsitsipas. I think I'm going to bet both the Shelton and the Fritz as top American.
Yeah.
And I might sprinkle on, and it might be a true sprinkle, like a half unit or something on Fritz to win the ace title. I do think there's a path there.
2,500. Okay. I'm not hitting.
It's not that I think he's going to do it. It's just a pure price play. It's like you're just praying Hubie gets hurt.
Yeah, Bet Rivers actually had some really interesting lines. And Match Point 9, John talked about it. So, definitely take a look at that podcast if you want some info on that. I tend to agree with a lot of things they talked about there. But yeah, we're not going to touch on it here because they did. So, yeah.
Yeah, we don't need to do a copycast.
No, definitely no copycats. It's just growing the space. But
all right, guys, we're getting to that point we're dribbling on. So have a good night, everyone, and thanks so much for listening as always.
So much.